there is a sense of urgency. There's been one for the last 2 months for us to even have a chance. So, our history of the play-in, you kind of just want to feel like what it's like to get through that and get into hopefully a series with Houston.
Today's episode of the Bay Area Beat is going to be all about the Warriors play-in against the Grizzlies. But before we get into it, I want to open with the Giants' series win over the Yankees this past weekend. For those that have listened to the show before know, I was born and raised in the Bay Area, but after college moved to New York City. So when the Giants, Warriors, or Niners make a trip out to the Big Apple, I always have it marked on my calendar as a must-see. This last weekend, I embraced the cold and wet conditions and saw the Giants take victories on Friday night and Sunday afternoon over the Yankees. While Sunday was a lot more enjoyable in terms of the competitiveness of the game, but also the more bearable weather, the story for both games remained the same. Jung-Hoo Lee has made his introduction to the national media and is slowly becoming a household name. In the Bronx, Lee got on base 6 times in 13 at-bats with 3 huge home runs to go along with a double and 7 RBIs. His home runs helped put the Yankees in a hole early on Friday night, and then he led the entire comeback on Sunday. It only took until mid-April, but I am officially a member of the Jung-Hoo Lee fan club, the Hooligans. Through 3 weeks, he's been by far the Giants' best player. He's third in Major League Baseball with an OPS above 1100. He leads the MLB in doubles with 8 and is hitting .352 on the season. During spring training, I was a bit skeptical about having him bat third with his lack of power, but he has shown he has a knack for driving in runs and delivering extra base hits, even when he's not playing in the hitter-friendly confines of Yankee Stadium. Anyways, I just wanted to give Jung-Hoo Lee his due. He's probably the most excited I've been for a Giant since Logan Webb blossomed in 2021. But enough about the Giants. The Warriors have miraculously found themselves yet again in the play-in tournament, even after an incredible second half of the year comeback. Today, I'll be joined by my brother Harrison to talk about the Dubs play-in against the Grizzlies and look ahead at some possible playoff matchups. Let's get into it. Okay, we are taping this episode on Monday night, just 24 hours before the Warriors take on Memphis in the play-in tournament, and just about 24 hours after the Warriors lost a gut-wrenching 124-119 overtime loss to the Clippers in the regular season finale with the playoffs on the line. I don't know about you, Harrison. It felt like a playoff game to me with playoff-like intensity, super tight rotations. We both know with the standings, if the Warriors were to have won that game, they would have been in the 6th seed playing the Lakers, a team who they had beaten just 10 days ago. The loss sent them into the play-in tournament. Will they be facing Memphis at home on Tuesday night, where the winner will face the 2-seeded Rockets and the loser will face the winner of the 8-9 matchup and will ultimately have to play OKC in round 1. Now, before getting into the Grizzlies matchup, did you have any takeaways from the Warriors' OT loss to the Rockets?
Yeah, it was definitely a disappointing loss and more largely a disappointing way to end the season. I think they dropped 3 of their last 5 games, which after the sort of run that they'd had after the Jimmy trade and after the All-Star break was really disappointing because they really put themselves in a position for success, but also some rest for the playoffs, making it come down to the final games when it really shouldn't have even been a super important game against the Clippers, and losing to the Spurs was frankly pretty disappointing. But after letting it marinate a bit and thinking about it, I think there are 2 ways to think about this sort of disappointing end of the season and the loss to the Clippers. With the first one being a sort of more of a negative outlook in that we set ourselves up for success and we played really well. We kind of established ourselves as one of the best teams in the NBA, at least for this post All-Star break stretch, and really could have held the 5 seed, maybe even the 4 seed if we would have ended really strongly. And now we have to go on the play-in, and just looking at recent Warriors history, we've struggled in the play-in and have never won a play-in game. So it's definitely not a position we want to be in, where even if we do win, we're less rested and have to face a higher seed. But another way to look at it is we can be set up for success in the position we're in that the Grizzlies is a matchup we certainly should win. They have been struggling since All-Star break. They recently fired their head coach. They're relatively young, and we beat them the last time we played them. So if we are able to get through this Grizzlies matchup, which we definitely should, and I think we will be playing the Rockets. And when we last discussed this on the podcast about a month ago, we talked about the Grizzlies and the Rockets being the best matchup for the Warriors. And I still think that's the case. So even though, in spite of the fact that we are in this play-in matchup, we have an opportunity to go Grizzlies to Rockets and face the Rockets in a 7-game series. So I think that could still be really good for the Warriors, and I think they have a chance to make a good run if they're able to start off well with this Grizzlies matchup.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and already talk about the Rockets with the Grizzlies on the horizon right now. What's so frustrating, you touched on it too. What was so frustrating is that they had an opportunity to make this game meaningless. If they beat the Spurs on Wednesday night, a tanking Spurs team, Harrison Barnes doesn't have to hit that 35-foot game-winning fadeaway. That's a game where the Warriors would have been in the 6th seed regardless. If they were to have lost, they could have gone up to 5. But the Clippers are such a tough matchup for them and have been for a couple years because of how big they are. I think Zubac had 17 rebounds last night. The Clippers out-rebounded the Warriors 42-25, and it's just really, really hard to overcome a 17-rebound differential. You can shoot the lights out of the ball, but when a team like the Clippers is getting 2 possessions for every one the Warriors get, it's simple math. It's really hard to overcome. And it wasn't only just the rebounding. What was frustrating to me too was just, it felt like the Clippers were like out muscling in pursuit of these loose balls. 8 more second chance points compared to the Warriors. It felt like I was watching like a 2019 Raptors Kawhi and 2017 Rockets James Harden, where these guys are at their physical prime and are kind of getting any shot they want. And the Clippers were just ultimately the Warriors' kryptonite this season. They were 0-4 against them this year. Clippers were actually 18-3 in their last 21 games. I frankly kind of thought the Warriors actually played a pretty good game across the board. They shot above 50% from the field, above 40% from 3. But the Clippers just played better and were getting multiple rebounds per every possession, and Kawhi and James Harden were incredible, particularly late in the fourth and overtime. I mean, Steph had, I think, an 18-point fourth quarter, and it was still overmatched by James Harden. So I'm glad they're not on our side of the bracket. They will be the 5 seed playing the Nuggets in the 4-5 matchup, so the Warriors wouldn't have to think about them until we're talking 3 rounds from now, and there's a whole lot between now and then to get into before that. Another thing I kind of noticed throughout the game, and one of my worries that came out about this Warriors team, is it feels like they rely still too much on Steph getting open. Like late in that fourth quarter, he is running around doing his thing off ball. Warriors are kind of just waiting in their sets to get Steph an open look. And give credit to the Clippers, they were defending him pretty well, particularly in overtime of that game. And the Warriors kind of get stagnant. And I really think that's kind of where we need to see Jimmy Butler take over, be that second option in these scenarios, get the ball at the block, go one-on-one to the basket, either drawing a foul, getting free throws, or scoring. So that was a little bit where I think I continue to have my fears about this Warriors team, is like what they look like when Steph's off the court, or what they look like in crunch time when you know he's going to be doubled and they simply just need to get a basket from anyone else on the floor. What did you think about Pods? He had another great game last night. He had 19 points. He shot out 7-11 from the field, hit 2 big threes late, led the team in rebounds. To me, it feels like he's kind of making this Jordan Poole-like leap that we saw in 21-22, and very different players. Jordan Poole was an amazing scorer, and I think Pods does all the little things so much better, whether it's rebounding, it's defense. Poole was just a very unique, perfect player to play alongside Steph just because of the spacing he brought. Very different players, but I'm seeing this leap in front of our eyes, and we've been seeing it since the trade deadline. What do you think about Pods, and what do you think his ceiling is come playoffs?
I'm a really big fan of Pods. I think coming off the season he had last year, I thought that he had legitimate potential as a really good NBA player and would continue to develop well. So I was disappointed when he had the slow start to the season. But since All-Star break, like many other Warriors players and the sort of team in general, Pods has been great. He's scoring really well, much more efficiently than he was before the All-Star break, and his 3 ball is looking much better. But more than anything, he really fits into the Warriors system, which as a result, I think he's ascended to the position as being a legitimate third option for the Warriors, which they really need at this time. And you talked about over-reliance on Steph, which I agree with you on. So when they can have legitimate options like Jimmy, like Pods, it will be a relief for the Warriors. And I think unlike someone like Kuminga, who I thought who I thought previously as someone who could be a Warriors third option. He more fits the role as someone who can score, but someone who's also cerebral and can sort of play with the Warriors, play with Steph, and continue to move the ball around and not sort of have to play his own style to score. So I think he's going to be a reliable player in the playoffs, and he's going to do the little things like you said, like rebound and play defense and get assists. But if he can keep scoring efficiently and hitting the three ball, he's going to be definitely good for us.
What's cool about pods too, you look at all the other first round picks the Warriors had in past years, and it's the James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga. It's these like hyper athletic freak athlete players that theoretically would fit perfectly with the Warriors scheme. They're able to get a lot of their attention inside. And then guys like Pods, who are clearly not the same athleticism as those guys and has to work for every rebound. He is the definition of what I think this team needs. And I also think he just plays a lot smarter brand of basketball. And that's why I think he can play amongst this group. I want to transition a little bit away from the Clippers towards the play-in versus the Grizzlies. Technically, this is not a must-win in the sense that if the Warriors do lose this game on Tuesday, they will have an opportunity to play either the winner of the Kings or the Mavericks on Friday night. I think they'd be huge favorites in either of those games. But I don't even want to go there because this is a must-win for the Warriors. A loss would force them, like I said, to play on Friday. They would also have to turn around and play OKC. If they won that game on Friday, less than 48 hours later in OKC, it would be a brutal turnaround for a older, somewhat injury-riddled team that desperately needs rest and recovery heading into the playoffs. They're 7-point favorites against the Grizzlies right now heading into this game, so they are considered favorites. You said you expect them to win, and we're going to get more into that. Steph had 52 against the same Grizzlies team a couple weeks ago. And frankly, like the Grizzlies are free falling a little bit. Like you said, they fired their head coach. They're 11-14 since the All-Star game. And their youngest, most exciting upcoming player, Jalen Wells, their starting shooting guard, just broke his arm and is going to be out for all the playoffs. So I expect them to win. I expect it to be a pretty competitive game. Do you have any concerns with this Grizzlies team?
I think my main worry with this Grizzlies game is that it's a playing game, and there's only one game to determine who makes it to the next round. So while I do think that the Warriors are a better team, it will be determined by one game. So the Warriors have to come out and have 4 quarters of good basketball. I think they often sort of have slow starts to the game, and they really can't do that. Like you said, the Grizzlies have been sort of falling, but they're still a legitimate, really good team with a lot of good young players. So if they aren't on their A game, they won't win the game. But with that being said, the Warriors should win this game.
Only concern I have, and it's not even really related to the Grizzlies, it's just how tired this team is. Not only how tired they are, they looked tired this last week, losing 3 out of their last 5, but Jimmy just had a knee to thigh contusion against Kawhi Leonard, who's like a cyborg and is pretty much a machine. All indications are that he's fine and he's healthy, but I'm sure playing a very competitive, high stress basketball game, high intensity game 2 days later, which they're going to play tomorrow, he's going to feel that knee. And then Steph has a sprained thumb in his shooting hand. They desperately, I thought, needed this rest, and it's unfortunate that they weren't able to beat the Clippers and get the full week, but they have to win Tuesday because they still will have 5 days. They won't play till Sunday if they are able to win on Tuesday. A few other points about Jimmy, too, is he was the best player on the floor last night, the first half of the game. He kind of disappeared the second half. He only took 4 shots and 2 free throws in the last 17 minutes of the game. But he was just constantly taking the ball, slowing everything down, making plays where it was really needed. He showed that playoff Jimmy's still there. And, we've seen glimpses of it. And we're finally getting to see now that every game is more important than the next, that he is kind of coming out and taking the initiative and the need to be aggressive and facilitate for this team more seriously, which I think is going to be critical. If they really want to go anywhere in the playoffs, they need a reliable second scorer. They had that to a degree with Andrew Wiggins in 22, and there's a lot of awesome role players. Pajemski is terrific in his role. He's a great rebounder. He is a great third scorer. Draymond is the defensive player of the year. But you need a second scorer to take a little bit of attention and a little bit of stress off of Steph for 4 rounds in the playoffs.
whether or not he took a sort of Kawhi Leonard knee to the thigh or not. These are the games that Jimmy was born for. And I think that might not be an optimal condition just based on rest, but this is why we paid him $60 million. This is why we trade for him. This is sort of where we get to see if this playoff Jimmy thing is still real or not. So I think that these are sort of the games that the Warriors look forward to, and it will really show how legitimate we are.
Not only how legitimate we are, but how much of a run this team has in front of them. We got a 35, a 37, and a 36-year-old leading the charge. And as much as I want to win this year, they all have 2 years left on their contracts. And are we a piece away in the offseason, or do we get rolled in the play-in or in round one? And it's clear that this team is still very flawed, even with Jimmy. I guess we'll see. Speaking of flaws, do you think Jonathan Kuminga plays against the Grizzlies? Do you even want him to play?
I do. I still have faith in Jonathan Kuminga. I'm still a fan of him. Honestly, I didn't love Kerr's sort of bench minutes in the last game. I know that he hasn't had a ton of time since coming back from the injury, and from that time we've seen inconsistency, but in that inconsistency we've seen a lot of good moments. And I think that he is sort of able to get a bucket when he needs to, and he's able to play good defense, and that's something that someone like Buddy Hield can't do. If it comes to Buddy Hield or Jonathan Kuminga, I think that Jonathan Kuminga should be getting playoff minutes between the two.
I understand what you're saying with having some frustration with Steve Kerr, and I am not going to say that I loved the fact that he was still messing around with rotations the last week of the season, and that he decided to pull the plug on Jonathan Kuminga in game 82 when they're going to need him, I think, to be at his A game if they really want to have a long, extended Western Conference run. But they have clearly lost faith in him, and it's year 4 of losing faith in Kuminga. It's crazy to think about how much they needed him, another body out last night with everyone playing 35 minutes. Jimmy Butler played 48 minutes last night in the overtime loss. And the fact that they weren't able to get 10 to 15 minutes for Jonathan Kuminga, I think just shows where he's at with this team, his level of trust, both with Steve Kerr and just the rest of the offense. Like, if Draymond and Steph really disagree with Steve Kerr and are advocating and say, we need Jonathan Kuminga out there 10, 15 minutes a night, he will be out there 10, 15 minutes a night. And I don't think the key guys in that locker room were saying this is a critical guy to our rotation. And they were 16-3 without him post deadline. And they've kind of had a little bit of a murky last couple of weeks since he's come around. And I by no means want to put that all on Jonathan Kuminga. He's had some flashes. He was unbelievable in that Lakers game a week and a half ago and was critical to securing the win. But it just feels like the end of the Jonathan Kuminga era. And I hope I'm wrong. I talked about this last week on my pod. Like, I hope I'm wrong and he's not getting DNPs most of the playoffs, but I think it is what it is. We talk about Pods being able to play with the Warriors so well, not only because of him being like the Swiss Army knife do-it-all player, but he also is just so smart and knows how to kind of make that last pass, doesn't miss assignments on defense. I mean, Jonathan Kuminga will have back cuts and back screens behind him and just like be completely aloof and give up easy buckets. And you can't be doing that in the playoffs. And it sucks. But like, this is, in my eyes, like the end of Jonathan Kuminga. And he to be perfectly fair, he played pretty poorly against the Grizz all season. In the 3 games against him, he averaged 10 points a game and was shooting 29% from the field. So I don't really expect him to play much in the play-in. He did have some of his best games of the season against the Rockets. He had 20, 23, and 33 in the 3 games against Houston. And I think that's where we're going to see his athleticism be a lot more valuable in that series. While I don't think he would be playing crunch time and closing with that unit, I do think he would be in the rotation, at least to start that series. And if Steve Kerr quickly realizes he doesn't have trust in him, he will be the first one to get his leash pulled. So I hope I'm wrong about Kuminga. Interesting quote from Steve Kerr I just want to share about the whole situation. He said, "We've just found a group since Jimmy got here that we're pretty comfortable with. Jonathan Kuminga has been really an impactful player for us. It doesn't mean he's going out of the loop moving forward. This is just how the game played out." Now, I don't expect Steve Kerr to just go on a mic and say he's never playing for us again or he's not playing the rest of the season. But I think the fact that he even had to come out and come to JK's defense kind of just shows how monumental this is within this team's roster and just for the franchise. What they were hoping would be the future of this team in the post Steph Curry, Draymond Green era is still not able to play meaningful basketball in year 4 of his career. What are your keys to the game? Anything that you think the Warriors have to do against the Grizzlies to come out with a win?
I think we've kind of touched on it, but I think not an over-reliance on Steph. If the Grizzlies are smart, they sort of take note to the Rockets and how they played Steph, not only in this most recent matchup, but they've seemed to sort of be able to defend him pretty well. And that looks like throwing a lot of guys at Steph from when he checks the ball up to the other side of the court. So I think the Warriors need to be dynamic and not over-reliant on Steph. I think Jimmy needs to be looking to score. And I think this is a game that we're going to see Draymond really plant his fingerprint, or however the saying is, put his foot down and really put an emphasis to his decoy candidacy. I think he's going to be guarding Jaren Jackson most likely. And if he can really stop him and make it a sort of Desmond Bain and Ja game, I think we'd have a good chance. Also, sort of on the Jaren Jackson topic, looking to get him in foul trouble, I think could be good for the Warriors.
That's my number one key of the game was attack inside, get Jaren Jackson in foul trouble. They feasted about 2 weeks ago when they played him last in the Santi Aldama center minutes. I think Aldama was minus 26 while Jaren Jackson was plus 5 in a game the Warriors won by like 8 or 9. So I completely agree there. Jaren Jackson, I think, is a fraud defensive player of the year candidate, and I've made this case numerous times. And I think Draymond is going to win it. He's become the heavy betting favorite. But Jaren Jackson just fouls out way too much, in my opinion, to be considered the upper echelon of defenders. A few other keys of the game I kind of wanted to touch on was making sure the combination of GP2 and Moody are forcing Ja into tough perimeter shots. I know he hit a bunch of them last game, but you just got to play law of averages and expect that Ja is going to be closer to his 33% career three-point percentage than I think he shot like 6 for 11 last week against the Warriors. Getting Steph in situations to attack Zach Edey in space. When the playoffs start and really get going is when we see centers eventually kind of get pulled from lineups. It always tends to move towards this small ball, spacing centric offense. And I think the Warriors dominated when they're able to get switches and get Zach Edey in space. He can't guard Steph. I mean, like whether it's on the perimeter or just getting a step and being able to go past him inside. And then the last thing, and one thing I think the Warriors can kind of take away from this Clippers game is they just need to be a lot more aggressive on the offensive rebounding and getting these hustle plays. The Grizzlies ranked second in the NBA, only behind the Rockets, who, as we've touched on, would be their counterpart if they were to be able to beat the Grizzlies. But the Grizzlies finished second in the NBA in rebounds. Memphis is a lot bigger than the Warriors. The Warriors are going to have to kind of get out and transition offense if they really want to score, because once they get into this slow half-court offense, the Grizzlies are just a bigger team. And the Warriors were 14-18 when they're out rebounded this season and 2-4 in the last 6. So there's a strong correlation to them being able to get second chance points and being able to win ball games. And I think that's going to be another just key component for them to hang with Memphis. So let's assume the Warriors do win on Tuesday night against Memphis. And again, it's a big assumption. It's going to be a competitive game. It's only a 7-point spread. With all that in mind, would you have rather played the Lakers or the Rockets in the first round?
I still would rather play the Rockets. We talked about this a month ago, or however long it was, about ideal matchups. And in that, I thought that the Rockets were the best matchup. And I still think that they're a good matchup, but I will have to say that I definitely underestimated the Rockets when I made that take. I think especially in their most recent matchup, but just the way they ended the season, they're a legitimate team. And I think while they are more of a regular season team in their youthfulness and inexperience, they are very good, extremely athletic, and really good defensively. And they were able to shut down Steph in a way that no other team could. I think last time I talked about Warriors being able to win that series in 5. I do think that the Warriors would win that series, hopefully, and maybe they'd be favorites, but I think it would take 6 or 7 games. And I think it would be the small adjustments that the Warriors are able to make and their experience that would put them over the edge. But it would be a game of chess, I think.
I would have loved for the Warriors to have gotten this full week of rest and played the Lakers in the 3-6 matchup. I think it is a good matchup in the sense that the Lakers are pretty small without AD, but I think this loss to the Grizzlies, and I don't want to be the overly optimistic fan, but I think this might be a blessing in disguise if they are able to beat the Grizzlies. They will still have 5 days off before playing on Sunday, and they would go from playing the by far most playoff experienced team in the Lakers to having the team with the by far the least playoff experience being the Rockets. Obviously, like you said, the Rockets' athleticism and elite perimeter defense may give the Warriors some trouble. We saw that a couple weeks ago where the Rockets held Steph to 3 points. I think he was 1 for 7 or 1 for 8 from the field. Amen Thompson and Dylan Brooks and all the incredible lengthy wing guys that they have are really tough matchups for the Warriors because they're essentially able to have one guy on the court at all times. That's sole purpose is to stop Steph Curry at the best of their abilities. And obviously any offense they can create outside of that is his bonus. But outside of Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams, no one in that rotation has extensive playoff experience. Dylan Brooks made it twice with those Memphis teams, one with the Warriors, and obviously we know he pushes Gary Payton with that dirty play when he's going for a layup, gets suspended for a game. And then the other was the following year, again with the Grizzlies, where he's kind of chirping LeBron all series long, ends up just shooting so poorly from the field that kind of shot the Grizzlies out of that series and out of that game. These guys have a touch of playoff experience, but no one that's really gone all that far. And yes, the Warriors would need to scheme up an offense that kind of creates switches and prioritizes getting Steph some open looks. And obviously the Rockets are this incredible best rebounding team in the NBA, which has been the Warriors' kryptonite, particularly for a team that plays Draymond at the center position at 6'6". But I think it's a lot easier to see the Warriors go Rockets in the first, likely Lakers in the second, and then maybe OKC in the third, than having to play the Lakers, this incredibly smart, skilled, experienced team, and then playing the winner of Clippers, Rockets. And again, I think that's the Clippers. Maybe I'm too much in my short-term bias, but what I saw last night with the Clippers was just a very, very good basketball team. And I think, in all honesty, the Warriors are now avoiding OKC, Denver, and the Clippers all being on the same side of the bracket as them. And I would argue that is like 3 of the 4 best teams in the West. So being able to avoid them till at least round 3, it's going to be huge. And this might not mean anything if the Warriors lose to the Grizzlies tomorrow night, but I do think they kind of fell into this blessing in disguise. I was very disappointed when they lost that Clippers game. It was a gut-wrenching overtime game, but if you want to look at this war of attrition and the fact that the Warriors are going to have to win 4 playoff series to be NBA Finals champs, you want to give yourself the best, I don't want to say easiest, but the most sustainable route possible. And I think this is just that. So before we close, give me your official prediction for Warriors Grizzlies. I want a winner. I want the final score, team MVP, and the X factor.
Okay. The Warriors are going to win tomorrow. I think they're going to win by 5 to 10 points, as the spread would suggest. And I think it's going to be a game where they sort of hold a slight lead consistent throughout the game and are able to close sort of with their experienced guys. They're able to close the game and win. And I think it's these sort of 3 guys, Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy, that are going to be at the forefront of that. I talked a little bit about it, but I think Draymond's going to have a big game tomorrow. And I think that he is going to make a significant difference on both sides of the court, but especially defensively. I think we're going to see playoff Jimmy get at least a little sneak peek of it. And I think obviously we'll see some Steph excellence, but I think that that'll be enough to take down this team and not give us a comfortable win, but one where we're not losing too much hair.
Just for one, I have Draymond Green over 17 points plus assists tomorrow as my lock of the day. So I am completely in agreement there on Draymond Green. I'm going to avoid him for my X factor because I don't want to have the same one as you, but I too have the Warriors winning. I have it being a 118-113 game. So Grizzlies just barely covering the spread. I think it's going to be a little more competitive than the spread suggests. Like, the Warriors are coming in pretty tired. I'm not saying the Grizzlies aren't. Like, they've still played the same amount of games in the last 10 days, but the Warriors are one of the oldest teams in basketball. And I just think the injuries coupled with the exhaustion, I think, is going to lead to a pretty sloppy first quarter, and I hope I'm wrong. So I got the Warriors winning by 5. Team MVP, goes without saying, Steph Curry had 52 against them last time they played. I don't think he gets that number, but I do think him not having Jalen Wells, who was the primary defender on him a couple weeks back, is going to be another feather in his cap and should only allow him to get some more open looks. And then I have Brandon Podjemski as the X factor. I think he's been the X factor for this team the second half of the year. You can call it Jimmy Butler, and he's been awesome, and we aren't where we are, and I don't think the Warriors are even in the plan without Jimmy's arrival. But Brandon Podjemski has taken the leap, and I think he is going to continue what we've seen these last couple months and be this team's most valuable X factor, the difference maker in this, what I call 5-point win over the Grizzlies. This was great, Harrison. We're going to do this again. Definitely. Let's chat come, what, are we thinking second round already? Are we not going to get ahead of ourselves too fast?
Let's see. I mean, one thing I want to say is I'm a little less convinced than I was about 2 weeks ago about this team and how much of true contenders they are. But I think they're going to win tomorrow, and I would love to be proven wrong. So we'll chat as this team continues to prove me wrong and see how these playoffs go.
Yeah, let's prove him wrong, Dubs. I would love to clip this in mid-June when he's talking about not feeling so confident in this team. I can't say that I don't disagree. It's definitely been a wonky last 10, 11 or so days, but go Dubs, beat the Grizzlies, get the 5 days off, rest, recover, and let's get ready for Houston on Sunday.
Go Dubs.
Go Dubs. All right, let's talk soon, Harrison. Take care.
Sounds good.
Now, if you made it to the end of the episode, I want to say thank you. If you don't mind subscribing and maybe even dropping a like, you'll become my new best friend. I produce these Bay Area sports podcasts twice a week, and I'm looking to grow my audience as much as I can. You can find the audio version of the podcast on Spotify or Apple Pods at the Bay Area Beat, and on YouTube at Bay Area Beat. You can also find short clips on all socials under the same name. Thanks again for listening. Catch you all next week.